if you are present and really looking, watching, feeling, and hearing the beauty that is just out there every day for us to consume, that is happiness, in my opinion. It's not any a particular state. You could be, in bed, not well with a cold. You could be suffering for any number of reasons. But if you are grateful for what you do have, and this is how I've found that little key, I think the door to being happier more often. I think that for me, that's the definition of happiness.
Hello and welcome, Sacred Explorers. Today I have a very special guest, Doni Belau, and we are taking you on a sacred site tour around the world to discover 10 sacred places and 10 inspiring stories, and why these sites hold the power to transform your life, just as they did with Doni. Doni founded the women-only tour company Girls Guide to the World in 2009. With a mission to empower women of all ages to explore the world, Girls Guide to the World now offers 60 tours to 40 countries. As an intrepid traveler who has explored over 80 countries, Doni has used her destination knowledge to curate a diverse portfolio of trips, catering to a wide range of interests, from cultural immersion and culinary tours to activate adventures and wellness retreats. Each itinerary is thoughtfully crafted to spark curiosity, foster authentic connection, and create lasting memories. Doni's diverse experiences, from television production to humanitarian work in South Africa, have fueled her passion for creating transformative journeys that blend personal growth with the joy of exploration. With over 15 years of experience in the travel industry, Doni's in-depth understanding of destinations, travel trends, and evolving consumer desires ensures that each tour offered prioritizes connection, personal growth, and unforgettable experiences. When not leading trips, she divides her time between France, New Orleans, and a sailboat named Relish, a testament to her adventurous spirit. Oh my goodness. Welcome, Doni. I am beyond excited to have you here and share from your vast portfolio of knowledge and experience, a unique blend that makes life fun and so expansive. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to speak with you.
You are providing so many life-changing experiences for people. So, what is your personal secret to happiness?
Wow, big question. I love that you started with that. I maybe 25 years ago, I wouldn't be able to answer that. It used to really bother me, actually, when my dad would ask me, "Are you happy?" Such a heavy question. And I didn't know how to answer it back then. But now I would say, absolutely. Am I happy every moment? Of course not. Nobody is. But the definition, as I understand it now, thanks to a teacher that I found probably about 15 years ago, Tich Nhat Hanh, for those of you who might know him, he is no longer with us, but he was quite well known Zen Buddhist monk from Vietnam who has and still has a place called Plum Village, which happens to be near my house in Bordeaux. So he defined it as gratitude. And I really believe that. I believe if you're here in the present moment, accepting whatever is coming our way, which a lot of times is hard to, other times we are not awake to it. But if you are present and really looking, watching, feeling, and hearing the beauty that is just out there every day for us to consume, that is happiness, in my opinion. It's not any a particular state. You could be, in bed, not well with a cold. You could be suffering for any number of reasons. But if you are grateful for what you do have, and this is how I've found that little key, I think the door to being happier more often. I think that for me, that's the definition of happiness.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I feel it's a very important reminder at these days to really come back to what's there instead of focusing on the lack. Yeah. Thank you. So, ready to dive into these 10 sacred sites and the transformations together.
Excited. Yes.
And thank you for mentioning Thich Nhat Hanh. I know that we are going to revisit him later, but I want to start with, so you had shared upfront with me that you, for your 50th birthday, traveled or walked the Santiago de Compostela, the great way of the pilgrimage,
Yes.
solo. So, wow, I mean, what a great gift. What was your intention? And now looking back, what has the Camino gifted you with?
I always, not always, actually, I didn't even know about the way or Saint-Jacques de Compostelle, they'd say in France, or Santiago de Compostela in Spain. I didn't know about it until the first time I went to Plum Village, again, Thich Nhat Hanh's retreat center. And somebody told me that they were doing it right after their retreat there. This guy and his girlfriend, very cool. He was a composer. He is a composer. And I was like, really? This has been going on for 1,000 years, and somehow I missed it. Everybody from Charlemagne to, people, so many people now since the movie The Way with Martin Sheen have now walked it. I think I was interested in it for several reasons. I thought something it'd be great to mark, the 50th, which is kind of a big milestone. Each decade is kind of a milestone, but I wanted to mark that with something special. But I actually didn't make it right that year. I think I did it the next year. Somehow I didn't get it together. But the idea was to walk in silence each day. And then I allowed myself to talk to anyone I met in at night or during meals, because of course you have to, order stuff. But that was the intention, is just to see. I didn't really have any preset, this is what I want to get out of it. I just knew that taking this time, walking in silence in nature every day, and it was for 9 days, would be something really meaningful and productive and thought-provoking, shall we say. So finally, what did I get out? What did I get out of the walk? Well, first of all, if you ever wanted to do Santiago de Compostela, I would really recommend walking alone, even if you are with a group. So you can go on a group trip there. We actually used to offer them. But what happens is if you're walking next to somebody, you're first of all, you're trying to walk at their pace. You're not really walking at your
Yeah.
own pace. And then what if you start talking? If you start talking, as we all know, if you are walking in nature or anywhere by yourself and are really trying to be present, you see so much. If you're talking to somebody, that's another wonderful thing, but it's not the same. You don't have the same experience. And obviously, both are very valid, but I would really recommend walking alone during the day and then meeting up with your friends if you happen to go with them at night. That I loved all of that alone time. It's just so enriching to feel so safe and alive in the world on your own, walking in nature. I remember seeing and spotting, it was October when I did it for weather reasons, and I saw so many amazing mushrooms, and I would capture them with
Mm,
my camera. And each day, there was certain struggles. Sometimes it would be hard to finish out the day. My legs were hurting, or, my feet. It was really my feet, but I never got injured, which was great. But to say, it's really hard to put in words what I got out of it. It's not as if it's changed my life, because I've been a seeker, shall we say, for my whole life, and have done a lot of different experiences that are deep and moving. But I think there's a real sense of accomplishment for me. There was a real sense of accomplishment in doing it. And I think the more we can feel really safe alone. So meaning
yeah.
happy as yourself alone in the world, and being perfectly satisfied with that. I think that's another key to happiness.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. Wow. And I get the piece of silence and the aloneness, I guess, is also a thread that we will, yeah, come to discover later. I love it. Just a little disclaimer. I did an episode, it's episode number 7, that is on the Camino and like unravels a little bit about the ancient history of the place and what what the significance of the pilgrimage actually is. So I love that. And, it's something that I feel is very much alive. Like, no matter on what level of consciousness we hold, we all get the experience that we are meant to have.
Right, right. And you don't have to be Catholic, of course, to do it. You don't even have to be, traditionally religious at all. And some people just do it for the walk. I think that
Yeah.
any reason is really fun to get your passport stamped along the way. It's almost like a scavenger hunt. It's really, really, really fun.
Hey, everybody. If you are enjoying the show, then you would do me the biggest favor in clicking the subscribe button and engaging with my content so I can continue to deliver these beautiful conversations to you. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Wow. So now that you mentioned Thich Nhat Hanh and Plum Village, something like a center point, it feels like this is really, yeah, a center of, I see it like a wheel where all of these spokes then run out from. So in the Plum Village, you had the honor to meet and also meditate with Thich Nhat Hanh, and I'm curious because you shared a little bit about it, but it feels that, his teachings are really at the core of what you're doing. So how did these unfold in your life after being in the presence, yeah, of such a great mind and being?
Yes. And he would say, I am just a humble monk. He did not want people to put him up on a pedestal, which I thought was also really fabulous. I don't remember how I found it. I know that many, many years ago, somebody mentioned him to me and bought some of his books. What I love about Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings is that they're so simple and they're so accessible. And it's not, and I know that probably most of your listeners know this because they're probably already, walking down their path, but what was important for me, and I actually, at one point for my actual 50th birthday, I dragged my whole family there. But it's my husband is a really an avowed agnostic in every possible way. Really issues, just can't stand, I guess, traditional religion for a variety of reasons. But what I love about Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings is that he says you can be, and I like to do his accent, you can be a Christian Buddhist, you can be an agnostic or an atheist Buddhist. So it is a philosophy rather than a religion, at least how he teaches it. I went probably, wow, it's got to be 15 or more years ago, maybe 18 years ago, the first time. And I think the reason I went was to learn how to meditate. I knew in my life that I needed to bring meditation into my life because I'm a goer and a doer. As you could tell from the intro here, I just can't stop. And really meditating is about stopping. So I knew I needed that pretty desperately at that point. And so I went by myself. You are not allowed to go for less than 1 week. They believe that you need a week to really get to the place where you're really taking this in. And you get up very early in the morning and you meditate. They basically teach you how to meditate. And it's, for me, the easiest method that I've ever learned. And I have been to Deepak Chopra's play, a lot of different other methods. And I love his method, which is, it's basically, you basically have a word with each in and out breath. So in, out, deep, slow, calm, ease, smile, release. And then he's got a longer thing. But that was really helpful for me. And to this day, I use that. It's helped me. I used to be a little bit afraid of flying. Never, never. I'm not at all afraid anymore. It just, I think, the Buddhists meditate on death and being accepting of the fact that at least this body is not going to be around forever. And the more you can accept that and not be afraid of that, the more at peace you are and the more you get to enjoy your life. I think that's really important. And it's something people don't talk about enough, in my opinion. It taught me so much. I went back probably 5 times. I'm so grateful I got to be there while he was alive. You can still go there, and all of his monks and nuns, are really carrying on his teachings, and they're just so beautiful, all the people there. And that was absolutely a life altering event the first time I went, and every other time. You get to the point one night, and they do it a little bit differently each week. But there's a song that the head nun sings, and then you learn, and everyone sings, and it's in Vietnamese, so you don't really know what you're saying, but it is a song that is so resonant with your soul. And you know how music can touch you in a way that almost
Mm-hmm.
nothing else can. And I just remember that first time just absolutely sobbing when we were singing that song, and we took lit candles and we went out around the lotus pond and placed them there, and everybody, in silence, was just enjoying this song and everything. It was so profound. Like right now, the hair standing up on my head thinking about it, on my arm. But it it's such a moving. And then I think what I remember thinking at that moment is, why can't all of life be like this? Because you're
Mm-hmm.
in this incredibly protected, loving environment. There's 1,000 people who come each week.
Wow.
So it's not you and Thich Nhat Hanh, it's
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and 999 other people, as well as all the monks and nuns. And it's the most peaceful experience I've ever had anywhere on the planet. And lucky, I just feel so blessed that I got to do it so many times. It really was life-changing, and everybody I met there, touched me in one way or another. So, if you ever have a chance, he does have monasteries around the world, and there's some in California, there's one in Vermont, there's some in Italy. So worth checking in. And even if it's just reading, his book on love, or no fear, no death, any one of his books. It's just, if I'm feeling lost or confused, I go on YouTube and look up one of the videos. There's just thousands of them on there. And yeah, it's he and his teachings bring me peace.
Hmm. I can feel that. Yeah. It's just like this blanket of calmness right now. Thank you. I love it. So, Plum Village for those who want to take a note. And there is more, as you just said, around the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. So let's leave Europe and jump over to Bali,
Yeah.
where you had, like, from the teachings of love, where you had a personal love story that was reconsecrated and renewed with your husband, where you exchanged, or renewed rather say, your love vows in Bali. So tell us how this sacred island and the water blessing ceremony opened you up for a new way of relating to each other.
Thank you for asking. Because I run a girls only travel company, I don't talk about my husband and I too much, just because there's so many people that come with us that are widowed or divorced or not partnered up in one way or another. And of course, plenty of people come who are, but so I don't, it's kind of fun to talk about Robert and myself. So we met in high school. So we have literally grown up together. We did spend about 8 years apart here and there, but not 8 years. That's wrong. 2 years apart. It was 8 years after we met, that we got married. But I think it was our 20th anniversary. So this is also going back quite a while,
Wow.
maybe 17 years. But I had it in my mind. Well, of course, we all saw the movie Eat, Pray, Love. I read the book, saw the movie. And between you and I was looking to find, what's his name? Oh my gosh. The fabulous actor who's in the Bali portion, who's married to Penelope Cruz, and I'll think of his name in a moment. Absolutely
I
drop
don't
dead.
recall his name.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely drop dead gorgeous. So I was looking for him. He didn't show up, but my husband was there. Anyway, so the idea was to renew our vows. I thought that would be something kind of romantic and a wonderful thing to do. And we did that. And I actually used a fantastic consultant or, travel, Javier Bardem. I had to look it up. It was driving me crazy. Javier Bardem was, funny enough, was not there on our 20th anniversary. But yeah, anyway, so this lady who is an expert in Bali, and now I have another amazing expert in Bali who leads our Bali trips. They're really popular, as you might imagine. This lady set up a vow renewal experience for us, and we did two different things. One was we went to and they're Hindus there, but it's really very different. It's almost infused with a more of a Buddhist philosophy, and it's their own. So if you were to compare it to, a Hindu religious experience or a Hindu religion in India, it's very different, because over time they've just taken it and done their own thing with it. So it's a really beautiful, beautiful country in terms of their culture and the religion, their own style of Hinduism with a touch of Buddha in there is unique. And for me, I found it easier to relate to, let's say, than in India. But, I haven't studied deeply in India. So anyway, we went to this priest's house. He had a big, sort of like a giant offering of food. There was a chicken. So they're not vegetarians like they are in India. Many of them, of course. And then there's vegetables and fruit, and we had incense. And so he conducted this ceremony. And I have to say that I really don't know all that he was saying, of course, because it was in Balinese, but he blessed us and, basically said, we are hoping, of course, for another 20 years. And we're on our way. We're almost all the way to that, actually. So I really have 17 years now, next week or so. But then you had to eat some of the fruit. So, this is really kind of an ancient type of ceremony. If you think about it, it was just in Peru earlier this year. So there's a lot of times offerings to the gods, and the gods might be, Mother Earth and the sky and so forth. Then later on that trip, we went to the water temple. That's something that we also do on our Bali trips. It's a really special place. You actually get in the water with, you dress appropriately, but of course you're covered. It is a very holy temple, the water temple. It's a difficult word to pronounce, and I'm not good with my Balinese words, but you go there and we have our own priest that comes with us, and he tells you so there's a series of fountains and you go down each fountain. And this one is going to help, calm maybe your temper. And this one's going to help with depression. So you're basically washing yourself with these waters as you go down this allotment of fountains. And then we came out, we sat down, and the priest further blessed us and used incense and so forth. And, even if you don't understand every single thing that is being said, I think part of why I love to travel is I love to soak in other people's cultures in their ancient practices, because everybody, dating back 10,000 years has been seeking to find love, right? We all, way, way, way back, we've all wanted the same things. Of course, we need enough to eat and we want a family, but we're all looking for love and contentment, happiness and peace. And so it even if it's not all spoken, you feel that. So I just feel, again, incredibly blessed that we had that experience, and it definitely brought us closer. I really recommend it for anyone who wants to renew their vows, and do it in Bali or there's tons of other places to do it.
Thank you for sharing this personal note of this personal story as well. I love it.
Thank
And
you.
it really, as you say, like it doesn't matter if we cognitively or even like from the words understand everything. It's that field and that energy that is created that ultimately, I guess, ripples and that also stays in the memory like literally in the memory bank of the cells as well.
Absolutely. And I think that we can get lost in our head. I know that's something that Thich Nhat Hanh said. He said, when you're getting you have all these emotions and you're getting lost in your head and I saw my trip some people who want to know every single thing that's going to happen that day. I tend to be a much more intuitive person, kind of go with the flow, and well, of course worked on that, but as I've just explained, and we're just talking about this, you don't need to know everything because you can feel it, and that is much more powerful than
Yeah.
whatever your brain is using in terms of logic and rationale and reason. So Thich Nhat Hanh used to say, if you're getting lost in your brain, think of your feet. He said, those are the furthest point from your brain.
Oh, I'm going to remember that. Think of your feet.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, it's so sweet too. He also says, which I love, he said, you know, people say Jesus walked on water and it was amazing. He said, but I believe when I put my feet on the planet and I walk a few paces on the earth, I consider that a miracle because there's so many people who can't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that are past basically. So, and
Yeah.
that's him. So I love that. So you can think about your feet and how they're touching the earth and connecting with the earth, and then you can get out of your head that way.
Think about the feet.
Think of the feet. Yes.
Amazing. Okay, so from Bali, we are traveling to Japan, where you've stayed twice at monasteries in the temple town of Mount Koyasan, which you told me is the epicenter for the Shingon sect of Buddhism. I wasn't familiar with that one. So I'm curious to know what was activated for you there.
Great question. We also went the first time, my husband and I, and that was our 25th. As you notice a theme here, big, you know, big anniversaries, love to go somewhere together. And then I've been back and I've taken people there on trips. So Mount Koyasan, I don't remember how I found out about it. And this is now again almost 17 years ago, the first time I went. Something like that. No, 12 years ago, it's 25th. Yeah. So it is a mountaintop that you have to take basically trains, planes, and funiculars and everything else to get up there. It's not an easy trek. You have to literally take a funicular that sort of like almost like a train, like a cable car that kind of goes up. And it's actually really beautiful to get up there. Once you're up on top of the mountain, there are no cars. There at some point used to be something like 800 monasteries. I could have that number wrong, but
Wow.
a crazy number. And there's still quite a few. And you are invited to stay at the various monasteries. And, you're going to have a vegetarian meal. They tend to be, there's all types of different monasteries. They're all part of this Shingon sect. It is an older form of Buddhism, older than Zen. I am not in any kind of a way an expert on it. I would love to go stay there and learn more. But the wonderful thing about going there is you stay in one of these when I say monastery, that sounds like it's going to be huge. They're really just overgrown houses with extra rooms. They tend to be made of wood, very, very beautiful and very peaceful. The last one that we did on a trip we stayed in was absolutely stunning, had a beautiful Zen garden as you walked in. Everything was elevated. Everybody had their own room. And then you come together and have a vegetarian meal, a kaseke vegetarian meal. So there is what they call temple food in Japan that is, it's its own art. The Japanese take everything to the nth degree, and it's beautiful. So you get served approximately 10 different courses you're sitting on the ground with a little table in front of you. Obviously, there was wine and beer available at that place, but normally you wouldn't be drinking. And, it's just a beautiful meal. You walk around usually before that, and actually you can walk around at night as well. It's a place that has all kinds of really old ancient temples that you'd visit. There's an incredible cemetery, really, that we had a guided tour of, which is absolutely fascinating. And we did it at night, which I thought would be really interesting. And everybody loved it. We had flashlights, we're going through this cemetery, and it was really long, and it's got lanterns all the way down, stone lanterns that are lit up. So
Mm.
it's really, really beautiful. And you could also take a beautiful walk in nature, up further up the mountain, which my husband and I had done the first time we went. And then in the morning, you get up early and you join the monks for their morning meditation. And then usually they give you, something like something to put around, like a little tie to put around your arm, your hand rather. And it's something to remember the experience by. And hopefully when you look down at that and you leave it on till it falls off naturally. We had ours on for like a year and a half, I think. And just it reminds you to stay present, and just reminds you of the peace that you found there, and that you can find that anywhere, even in the most crowded subway in New York City. So I really, even if you know nothing about Buddhism, it doesn't matter. It's really, and they do this in Korea too. It's wonderful to spend the night in one of the monasteries or the temples, and depending on where you're at, it's a really, again, soaking in an ancient culture, and it's a feel thing, and you definitely will be moved by it.
Wow. I mean, it already, from what you describe, it already sounds just like a completely different
Yeah,
dimension in a way.
totally, totally.
Wow, I love it. And like again, I feel it's the importance, of this reminder of the integration into our daily lives, because we are not hermits, right? So we don't live on these mountains in the monastery as well, most of us at least as monks. Like
Exactly.
we have these busy lives. And so it's very important to know the tools and techniques, like you were also describing earlier, or just the little helpers, even if it's, yeah, the remembrance of the feet or the wristband to keep us in the present state.
Oh, it's exactly, because you feel so calm and relaxed when you're at these retreats or in the monastery or wherever, and or just swimming in the ocean, right? The nature is its own retreat, but then you get back into your daily life, and yeah, I've got to get to the dry cleaner, and then that person is annoying, yeah, and then how do I bring this into my daily life? That's the struggle, right? It's very easy to be at peace in these beautiful scenarios, but then how do we bring it in? That is the whole deal. That's the real learning is there.
It is completely. And I feel because a lot of the stories that you have or that you have experienced seem to be exactly inspiring this. So I love that you are bringing also these teachings forward.
Yes, as much as I can. I really want to invite other people to have experienced this kind of happiness and peace, and be open to it, even if it doesn't mean you have to become a Buddhist or a
Yeah.
Hindu. I think that religion, certainly organized religion, scares people away, or if they have a very clear belief, then they're a little bit worried that they're cheating on that,
Mm.
somewhere else. But
Yes. Yeah,
I
completely.
feel like truth is everywhere, and just take what you need, and leave the rest, and not get too caught up in it.
Absolutely. So let's stay a little longer in Japan. And would you share with us the transformative essence of learning the way of tea and ikebana as a hands-on way to access the intrinsic Zen Buddhist nature that is so present in the Japanese culture?
Thank you. So these are two of my favorite activities. And, they actually, I got so inspired the first time I went to Japan that I started taking Ikebana classes back home in New York for a while. So if anyone who doesn't know, Ikebana is the Japanese art of arranging flowers. Just as the way of tea, it's not about tea and it's not about flowers, really. Of course, the end result is a beautiful flower arrangement, but what I love is what it means. So, and it's interesting because what Japan has done, and I'm sure this is true of other cultures as well, but they have found a way to imbue the Zen Buddhist idea or ideal into activities that you can do with your hands. And I find this with my trips is that when I have people do something that's a hands-on activity, whether it's cooking class or dressing up and enjoying the tea ceremony, dressing up in kimono and enjoying the tea ceremony, anything that is interactive kind of instills or sort of makes you feel the culture more than just seeing a sight. Because when you're seeing a sight, no matter how beautiful that is, it's passive, right? So, and you don't have to like to cook to enjoy a cooking class. It's just getting, again, out of your head and into your hands and feeling and experiencing the culture. So the Japanese have done this as a way to learn a number of things. So take the way of tea, for example. People who will show you or let you experience or invite you to a tea experience or a tea ceremony. It really is a ceremony. They have been studying, and they're considered tea masters, studying the way of tea for years and years and years. If you know anything about Japan, you can't get any 12-hour certificate there. It is a long-term thing to be an expert at anything. And they still never say they're an expert. They say, I might be a tea master, but I have so much to learn, because they're very humble. But the idea behind tea is that, it started out as kind of a bragging thing in the shogun, in the samurai era. So, I have a beautiful teapot that's handmade. It might even have some gold on it. No, I've got a bigger teapot and more fabulous cups. And you can see, we've all been down that road, right? And I'm going to forget his name. I'm terrible with names, but there was one monk who said, this is really, really not what it's about. And he developed, and you actually can go see the original temple that he practiced at, but he brought the idea of Buddhism and into the ceremony of tea. So the ceremony of tea is you go to if you have a tea house. If not, you might be doing it in a temple. If not, you might be doing it in any room somewhere else. But the idea is to duck down low to get into the tea room. The tea room will be covered in tatami mats. It usually is wood. There's going to be very little in there other than the tatami mats, the stove, which is built into the floor for the tea, for the teapot, and then usually a little corner where they will have the ikebana flower arrangement. And that is always done according to season. So if it's springtime flowers, hopefully you picked those flowers and then you arrange them using the ikebana method. And that's a whole nother conversation. I don't want to get lost here. But the beautiful thing about the tea ceremony, and it is very intricate, as everything is in Japan, certainly, and it's very involved. And if you talk about it and describe all the different things that are involved, it might sound like almost a little weird and obsessive, like what is going on here? But it's really not about the tea. They do use matcha. They have a special little whisk, but it's really a welcoming ceremony. And you turn the bowl, the tea master will show you the most beautiful part of the handmade tea bowl, which will have, flowers or something decorative. And then you pass it down and each person takes a sip, and then each person has their own cup of tea. But it's about being present in the moment, being thoughtful and kind to others, and drinking your tea and enjoying your tea right here, right now, because that's what we're doing right now. And this is the only moment, as we're all striving to meditate and be present and be mindful. That's really a concept that Thich Nhat Hanh brought to the West, being mindful. But it's all infused in this tea ceremony. So there are places around the world beyond Japan where there's Japanese centers, like in New York, I know, where you can experience this. It is profound. It is usually done in silence, except for they might describe a little bit before and after. But the lesson of tea is, and one of the times that I did it, there was a tea master, older lady, maybe 80 years old, and then her apprentice, who was probably 60, still learning to be a master. And she said, I was noticing at my home that my husband and son were not getting along. I think the son was a teenager. We've all been through that. So she said, I think we need to have a tea ceremony. So they both agreed. And because there had been a lot of fighting in the house and she was not happy about it. So they went into the tea room and she performed this ceremony, everything in total silence. And of course, she practices tea, so they know, they've done it with her before. They know all the sort of rules, if you will, and how to do things. So they had this tea ceremony. About 45 minutes later, she noticed that both the son and the father were crying, and they hugged each other afterwards. Nothing was said and everything was resolved.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is life-changing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's so amazing that you could do an activity in silence and that it could have that kind of profound effect.
I just want to take a moment to let that ripple out.
Mm.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And Ikebana is a word that I have heard, but I didn't know what it actually stands for. So thank you so much for explaining. And I definitely want to learn more about it now. I'm really intrigued.
Yes. Come on one of our trips. You'll get to do it. It's so much fun. And it's even more hands-on than the tea ceremony. It's really cool. And then you get a flower arrangement out of it. But look it up. It's interesting because each how you arrange each stalk or flower, let's to put it that way, it has to do with the earth and the sky and man and so forth. So it's all symbolic, and it really really fascinating too. And that's a whole art into itself, and people study for years to become an ikebana master. So
yeah, amazing. I will definitely check out your website and the trip. And I want to encourage everybody who's listening and watching to do that too.
Thank you.
So we're about halfway. So I can't wait here to hear about the next one. And we are going to Bhutan, Tiger's Nest. So what was the sacred medicine you got to experience with your group while visiting this breathtaking monastery?
Well, the tiger's nest, if you don't know it, is if you Google Bhutan, it's almost always the first picture that comes up. It's about 800-year-old monastery built into a mountain. So it took me 7 hours to get up there and back. So it's a serious hike. I had to train for it. It is, again, like the Compostelle, an achievement. You feel very proud of yourself, especially if you're not, a huge hiker, which I am not. It's kind of a goal thing, shall we say. And everybody who goes to Bhutan wants to do it. Some really can't, but a lot of people, everybody on our trip who tried it, who attempted it, made it. We have people, obviously I can't be an expert in every country in the world. So we use what you call DMC, so destination management companies who are experts in that country. So we had a really wonderful DMC help us, who is quite connected with the royal family. They sort of undercover helped us to get a blessing once we got up there by the head priest. So again, you've got Buddhism in Bhutan. And what a lot of people know about Bhutan is that, and it was not the current king, but the previous king, I believe, who coined the phrase, we do not measure gross national product, we measure gross national happiness. It sounds like a great little, travel, it sounds like a marketing thing, doesn't it? So, oh, that's so sweet. They are actually really taking it seriously. They all the decisions that are made by the government and by the king and the queen are considering the people and their happiness at the forefront. Can you imagine such a thing, such a government? It's really incredible. And it's not, we're so cynical in the West. And when you talk to
Mm.
people in Bhutan, they all absolutely revere this king because of what he's done for them. So the Buddhism is throughout the country. It is, absolutely part of the soul and spirit of all the people you will meet, the kindest people probably ever there, and next to the people that you meet in Africa and Ireland and other places. But it's an incredible country. There's so much we have to learn from them. And the Tiger's Nest is just one of the amazing spiritual or sacred experiences I had there.
Wow. I can just imagine you already like walking up there and then being, yeah, welcomed in such a loving and peaceful atmosphere. So that must truly be an amazing experience.
Yeah, I recommend it. It is for me, it was very difficult. I think for other people, it's easier if they're used to hiking, but it's definitely something you should put on the bucket list.
Yeah. Yeah. Yay. So let's change continents then and travel to South America together. So you had this privileged experience with a group on the Galapagos Islands, witnessing the, yeah, sublime marine animal and plant life that is truly one of a kind, I feel, revealing so much about also Earth's past. How did you experience the, I want to say, sacredness of nature itself on this trip?
Yeah, I appreciate that you allowed me to go a little bit off because I was thinking about what is sacred, what is sacred? There are all these places, the walk and the temples but oh boy, nature is so sacred and we are feeling that probably now more than ever, right? We know what we're losing. I think a lot of us are quite aware of that and there's some really smart people trying to change it and you really notice it in the Galapagos. So it was just last year and it was actually not a trip, organized trip with my group. It was for my husband's 60th birthday. So we actually chartered a boat with a bunch of friends and had this experience each day. So when you're in the Galapagos, and those who've been know, you go from island to island, from place to place, and you have land safaris. You have, snorkeling safaris. If you're a scuba diver, you can do a boat that's specifically outfitted for scuba. But each one of the different islands and different parts of the islands that you go to, and it's a series of quite a few islands, it's actually much larger than I thought it was because, sometimes we had to travel for 7, 8 hours at night on the boat, but you are experiencing marine life that you don't see anywhere else. Like there are lizards, dragons, I think they're called them water dragons, but they live they live on the land and then they go underwater and eat particular, I think it's a particular type of seaweed. So they've become adept at finding, you know, there's no other, and I'm just blanking right now on I'll think of it, the name of this animal, but it is wild to see these lizards in the water. And, for a long time, they'll stay under the water. Of course, there's the giant tortoises, which, can live
Mm.
to 120 and they just feel wise. There's such a beauty in such an animal that goes so slow and yet can live so long, I should say. So you have unbelievable underwater and on land experiences there that make you realize, how absolutely spectacular nature is. And, we can do that just by taking a walk in the park, but this really, it just slaps you across the head because each one of these, there's penguins down there, you're going to see manta rays. This is the word I was looking for, marine iguana. So the marine
Mm.
iguana, an iguana, so an over
Mm-hmm.
lizard that can stay underwater for, a really long time eating down there. And they're very, they look very prehistoric. You've got hammerhead sharks, you've got tons of sea lions and dolphins and whale sharks, and but then the sea lions come, they are very curious and they'll come right up to you. I had a like almost like a dance with a sea lion one day, and he comes up and he came really close. And then as soon as he got close to me, he would like go almost like, wow, and then he'd swim around me. And then he did it 3 times. I was like, what is going on? Like you're having
Wow.
an encounter with a sea lion. It was just it was wild. So and they, because they have never been hunted there, they've
Hmm.
been protected for so long. You have these. I had a penguin just brush by me like he was, get out of my way, you're in my area. It's just it's wild. And there's also all kinds of amazing plant life. So it's definitely I've been that year, I was lucky enough to snorkel in the Great Barrier Reef, in Hawaii, in the Red Sea, and also in the Galapagos. And if you are a
Wow.
snorkeler or scuba diver, this is the very best place in the world that you can see. Underwater sea life is off the hook there. So if that's not sacred, what is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I guess it just leaves you. I also had the privilege to go visit once, not to the Galapagos, but to like, kind of islands that are off the coast of Ecuador. They also held some of the species, and it just leaves you in total awe.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Amazing. So now onto a bucket list destination for many spiritual seekers and travel enthusiasts as well. Machu Picchu in Peru. What secrets did Pachamama reveal to you at this temple site?
Yes. It is a little scary when I've wanted to go there for at least 30 years, maybe 40 years, probably 40 years. Finally got to go. We each year we do a number of new trips. So I usually go on all the new trips. So found a really great lady, female owned company there. She's just wonderful. And she put together a really integrated trip to Peru for us where we got to have all kinds of incredible experiences off the beaten path, working and eating and being and learning from the locals. But the I guess the trepidation you have when you visit one of these iconic sites, is it gonna live up to my
Hmm.
imagination?
Yeah,
Because the preconceived notions are not so great for travel.
yep.
You get yourself all excited about something and you're like, well, the Mona Lisa is one of them. You're like, really? That's it? That doesn't do much for me. It's just this very small painting and big bulletproof glass in front of it and tons of people. But Machu Picchu 100% holds up. There are a lot of people there, very difficult you're not going to see it all by yourself. But we had a great guide who took us at the right time in the afternoon to see, the vista that's probably the most famous. And then we went back in the afternoon, in the morning the next day. We walked around. You feel the history as you're walking through it, but it's the location. It seems absolutely unbelievable that they created this there at the time that they did. It is awe-inspiring. But Peru itself, I just fell in love with it, and so did everyone on the trip. It's such it's an incredible culture. They really respect, going back to nature, they respect nature in the deepest possible way. All the indigenous peoples of Peru believed in, a multiple number of gods, but there was the god of the volcano, the god of the mountain, the god of the rivers, the god of Mother Earth, Pachamama. We actually did a Panchamanca experience, which is where they, dig underground and put coals in and they cook, your whole meal underground. And, Pachamama is Mother Earth and Panchamanca is meaning cooking inside the earth. We also were welcomed and blessed by a local priest. So it was, and then we got to spend a whole day with a community up in the Andes where we learned their farming methods, and they farm on these, steep
Mm-hmm.
hills. And so,
Mm-hmm.
the time of the Incas, and it's incredible, the things that they figured out so long ago and still are using today. We got to have, basically, it's like there's a festival or a ceremony or a celebration of the smallest things that we probably might think nothing of, but they had, almost like, if you can imagine, it's potato season. Potatoes are very, very, very important to the community, and because that potatoes and corn are just the cornerstone of everything they eat. And they have some crazy number of potatoes. You've never seen as many different kinds of potatoes. It's like, it's potato heaven if you like potatoes. And how could you not like potatoes? Everyone likes potatoes. But anyway, there were some potatoes that were ripe or ready to dig at this location. And then they made earth, and we did it with them. We made an earth clay oven of just clods of earth that we had dug up and put together. And then you started a fire, got the fire ready, and then put all of the potatoes in that oven. So, really about as ancient of an experience as you could have. And then we got to eat those potatoes along with some other stuff for lunch.
Mm.
So, when you're working with a community, you see, and before they do anything, before they started that little clay stove with the potato experience, they blessed and thanked the gods of the mountain, of the earth for, and this is back to Thich Nhat Hanh and appreciating what you have. Thank the earth for growing these potatoes. How often
Yeah.
do we do that? How often do we do that? Not enough.
It really feels like a nourishing experience coming right from the womb of Gaia.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
All right. So Guatemala is next. Again, picking up the thread of the silence. So you went on a silent retreat with your son, right?
Mhm.
And not only that, but it was over New Year's, watching the fireworks in silence. What did you learn about yourself during this time of silence?
So I have to say, I knew I raised a great kid when he said, for my 30th birthday, I would like to go on a silent meditation retreat with you. I was like, what? Wow, that's the
Wow.
coolest ever. I know. And he's a DJ. So he is the most
Oh my goodness.
I know. He's a seeker. He's always been interested in everything deep and profound, as well as also being funny and fun and, relaxed, and loves music and all that. But that's what he wanted to do. He researched and found a number of places, and I said, Guatemala sounds great. I've never been to Guatemala, always want to go. This is a place that is situated that looks over Lake Atitlan. We were lucky enough to get to go to first explore a little bit of the country, and then we went down to Lake Atitlan, which is one of those vortex places, if you've talked about that on the show. It's something that I didn't know much about, but increasingly wanted to go to more. So you kind of have a pretty sort of intense space, I guess, just for the setup. But what made it really interesting was it was after Christmas in 2020. So we all remember that year. It was a tough one.
We
Um,
remember that one. Yeah.
we remember it, and we are trying to forget it in a lot of ways, but they still decided to have it despite, all that was going on. And it was interesting for me because my dad had just passed away December
Mm.
23rd. And he was 98, so it wasn't,
Oh, wow.
it was a celebration, really, that he had such a great life. But he passed away from COVID. So it was kind of very optimistic, I guess, of me to go and do this. But we were mainly outside, but we did it. We went ahead and did it. We had a really nice little setup there, and it's a very Spartan thing, as you might imagine, in a silent retreat. But we had a little cottage to ourselves, and he had separate sleeping areas, thank heavens. But it was lovely, and it was overlooking the lake. And as you overlook that lake, you see volcanoes that are a lot of times there's smoke sort of wandering out of the volcanoes. They're not really intensely active, but there is some activity. And so when you were doing your yoga in the morning and there was a lot of meditation, sometimes a little bit hard for me to sit for that long, but to see those volcanoes, to see the lake, it's just another awe type experience. But what I found interesting for me, particularly on this retreat, and I know my son told me, well, I'll tell you what he told me afterwards in a moment, but I was struggling in the beginning because the lady who was teaching it, and there's the couple who owned it, but the lady who was the teacher and was someone they really revered, she was from a Hindu practice, but I did not vibe with her and I think you should never compare people. You should never compare countries. You should never compare experiences. But some, part of my, small part of my brain was, oh, this is nothing like Thich Nhat Hanh, that kind of thing. And I rumbling in my head for the first couple of days. And, my leg is going to sleep because we're sitting for such long periods. And, I said, this is really a struggle. And, I'm not loving it because I'm not connecting with this woman. So after like day 2, and it's not like you're just sitting in silence all day long. There's walking meditation, and she does the Dharma talk where you can write down questions. And so there's a Q&A kind of thing, but the questions you just write down so you don't have to speak. The silence itself is really powerful. And I really enjoyed that. You actually it's really lovely, and you can get so much across even when you're silent. Eating in silence is beautiful. So I was enjoying part of it. But anyway, so I'm sitting there and arguing with myself in my brain, as I'm supposed to be meditating. And the lady, and I finally just said, you know what? What are you doing? Like, you're ruining your own experience yourself
Yeah.
because you decided not to accept this woman because she's not who you want her to be or who you prefer someone else. But if you want to live a happy life, back to what we said in the beginning, you have to accept what is here right now. So get what you can from this lady. Stop, disagreeing with her in your mind and torturing yourself. It's just you're ruining your own time. There's nobody else here to blame but you, because of course I wanted to blame her because she wasn't whatever I thought she should be. So you realize the kind of the mind games that we play with ourselves, right? So as soon as I let go of all my expectations from this lovely lady, it completely changed my whole entire experience. By day 3 and 4, I was like, oh, this is wonderful. It was still hard to sit for as long because I'm used to sitting for about 20, 30 minutes. And, this was a lot longer. These people there that were with us were like professional retreat goers. I mean, they had done, everything and everywhere. And I felt like a neophyte, even though I've probably been to 25 retreats, throughout my life and, X number of spiritual talks and so forth. But it was a fantastic experience. I will admit, I did not make it the entire 10 days. I made it for 7. Not so much again, I was loving her. I was loving the yoga. I was loving the silence, but early January is the biggest time for booking for my company. And I was, I had to work. So I had to get on the computer. They did not have great internet. So unfortunately, but my son stayed the whole time. And I then met him afterwards. And curiously, it was right after January 6th. And a lot of people who in the US know what that means. So it was a wild time and a time that we could use all that we learned. He said it was an absolute life-changing experience for him. And he holds to that experience to this day. He holds it within him. And I know that he is just a fantastic yoga meditator. Every day he's incorporated this into his life. And he already had done that a little bit because he spent some time in Bali. But, I love what it did for him even more than what it did for me.
Yes. Yes, I can imagine. Wow. So we have arrived at number 10. Amazing. So leaving South America, hopping over to another continent again. We are in Rishikesh, India, the birthplace of yoga. what was the inner and the outer codes that got unlocked for you there?
Well, I have a complex relationship to India. The first time I went, I did Ayurvedic treatment. So that's like the ancient 5,000-year-old medicine that they practice in specifically in Kerala and Goa down south of India. It's what Deepak Chopra brought to the US. And I did not enjoy my time there. It was also because I had booked it. I didn't, you will, even though I go to the nth degree, and this is like the cobbler's son, right? The nth degree for my customers and research everything and, get the experts. But when it comes to myself, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go to India and this looks good. And let's go here. I'm very much, by the seat of my pants type of deal. So I went in April where it's basically 110 degrees every day. It was not enjoyable, was thrilled to get back on the plane. Second trip was better, went to Rajasthan on someone else's tour. It was a photo safari, learned some great things about photography, but still was like, not my favorite country. So this was the third trip. It was last year. And we actually, my best friend in the whole world, her son was marrying an Indian girl that he met in New York. And so we went for their wedding, which if you know anything about Indian weddings, they are 3-4 day affairs. It's an extravaganza, makes our weddings look just boring. They're incredible. People now, apparently Americans and other foreigners will pay to go to weddings. That's how cool they are. Yeah. So I think going for a really happy occasion afterwards, I mean, we just had an unbelievable time at the wedding. And then afterwards we went to Rishikesh and we had done wanted to make sure my husband saw, of course, the Taj Mahal and some of the key places you have to see. But then we went to Rishikesh, it's where the Beatles met their guru and the whole deal. But we stayed in an absolutely unbelievable hotel, the Taj, which is it's a chain, but it's uber luxury hotels, and you really do need to stay in a 5-star hotel when you go to India, unless you're 25 and you've got the backpacking spirit. It is, but these hotels, the 5-star hotels are like $250. So they're not, it's not price prohibitive. But anyway, we are going to go to Rishikesh on the trip that we've organized for next year, as well as do some Ayurvedic treatments. But it was being on the Ganges. They had a ceremony that is common in India. I did not know much about it, but we got to experience it there with a priest. And as soon as you come and check into the hotel, the priest wraps, the priest wraps you with another one of those, ties on your hand. So common, similar to what you do in Khorasan. And you'll see a lot of people have them, like a red string that you tie around. So again, to remember to be mindful. But to be, next to the Ganges River, witnessing this sacred ritual that happens all over India at sunset with a number of other people who were there, some of which were Indian, some of which were not. Again, just soaking in the ancient culture. Boy, there's such a complex and fascinating culture there. I just felt very privileged that I got to have that experience and that I finally turned a corner on India. Because I said the first time I went, and then afterwards, and I was kind of dissing India, I said, you know what? You can't go for 1 or 2 weeks to a place and decide
Mhm.
big, huge country of 1 billion people that you don't like it. It's too small minded. It's just, you haven't discovered enough. Now, you may decide not to go back, but recently there was a lady who is kind of an influencer in travel, and she talked about a country that she went to and she just hated it. She really just, you know, just said all these terrible things about this country that I happen to love. And I'm not even going to mention it because I don't want to put that into people's head. But it's not fair to give a whole deep, huge culture, not give them a second chance. So
Mhm.
it took me 3, but I am thrilled now that I understand a little bit more and appreciate a little bit more the culture and the complex, intense, and fascinating culture of India.
Yeah, thank you. And I feel it's important for everyone, because as you also said, like we go places and then sometimes we even, think we've been to places, like we've done that, or even we know it better, imposing our own, not just ideas, but maybe sometimes even concepts on these like ancient practices and people that have lived in these traditions for forever almost. So yeah.
I think it is important when you travel, and if you want to be someone who is a journey woman or a journeyman, you got to get rid of your preconceived notions, which caught me off guard in Guatemala, and it was a problem. And also your expectations, and just don't judge it. It's just different. It's a different place. That's all. There's no good, bad, or in between. But there might be something that you say, wow, this would be something I'd love to incorporate into my life, or wow, this is a really amazing thing that they've done in this culture. But then there's sometimes the tendency to judge your own culture too. We were doing a little bit too much of that when we were in Sweden and Denmark last week, because people were just so amazed by all the cool things they do there, and all the stuff they've figured out that, just details, but stuff that we really haven't figured out so much in our own country. But, again, there's stuff to learn everywhere. And if you can get rid of that judgment and those preconceived notions, and, love what is and just appreciate what is, you're going to have a lot better time.
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually going to ask you at the end, what is your advice? So I didn't even have to ask. This is like the perfect perfect advice that you gave. So thank you for that.
Oh, you
I
bet.
feel it's very important. But I also do want to ask you, where can people find you? And for anybody who is really intrigued with going on one or more of these amazing trips that you organize, what is upcoming trips? And I know that you do have a lot, but maybe just for our audience here, what is something that you feel that could be inspiring?
Thank you so much again. It's been such a pleasure. It is so much fun to talk about these deeper experiences. And I think travel can bring you so much. And it's an investment. I think that we have learned through science and through studies that, if you take time away from your life and have a pattern interrupt, as they say, and go away. And, I recognize that not everybody, these are high end trips, not everybody can afford them. Even if you're just going to your sister's house in Arkansas, or Switzerland, and you're lucky enough to have a place by the lake, getting away it actually extends your life. It makes you live longer. People have stress related heart attacks. That's the most common thing that happens. We know that stress adds to so many different illnesses. You really have to find ways to de-stress, and exploring another place, another culture in a safe way with other women, where you can also make friends, it really is an investment in yourself, in your health, in your well-being. So you can find us at Girls Guide to the World, TO, so Girls Guide to the World.com. And there you can also find us, all of our social handles. So we're at GG2, the number 2, the world. But don't worry about that. You can just find it all on the website. So we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We also have a private, if you hit our contact page, once you go to the website, Girls Guide to the World, hit the contact page, and you will see you can join a private Facebook group that really is just a place that we women are empowering each other to get out there and travel. And that is the one piece of advice that I would have. And you don't have to come with me, but just get out there and do it. It doesn't matter where you go. Go to the first place that comes to mind. Go to the place that, you pin on the globe. Go with the group. Go alone. It's a short life that we have, and we've got to see. You really need to see some parts of the world to realize there's so many different ways to do this life. It leads to so much. When you do this pattern interrupt, it leads to the ability to see your own life with a much broader perspective, and make some changes to, maybe get rid of some of those things that are not serving you. So yeah, it's Girls Guide to the World. Some of the trips we got, the most I kind of think one of the trips that you might still be able to squeeze onto is a trip to Fiji it's a wellness, it's called Mind, Body, Soul, and Spirit in Fiji. I've got one lady who is a dream specialist as well as a trans medium. Yeah, she's a trans medium and she's brilliant. She has her PhD and she's been written up and she works a lot with scientists. The other lady is a health and wellness coach, but she's not going to tell you, to eat tofu. It's much, much deeper than that. Much, much, much deeper than that. She is one of the best people in the world that I know who speaks on this topic, but she talks about all the emotions behind all of our health and wellness and why we're sabotaging ourselves and how to sleep, which is becoming so important to me and all of us in our lives as we get older. I've got to have sleep. It's the most important thing. Next year, I will be hosting a retreat in Todos Santos, which is one of my favorite places. It's one of those really special places in the world. It is an hour and a half, an hour and a quarter north of Cabo, but it's nothing like Cabo. There's sand streets. You've got whales jumping out of the ocean there. We're going to meditate on the beach. We're going to walk on the beach. It's just such an incredible place, amazing food. And then we have a life coach coming. So anybody who's experiencing a transition, it's a great time to do that. That's going to be in January. We have a writing retreat, but that is sold out. We will do some more writing retreats. We also have an amazing experience coming up in Maui next April, and it's with a sound healing couple. They do all kinds of really cool things, but sound healing, which if you know about sound and it's at the core of your brain, so it affects you deeper than almost any other sense. If you've never had a sound healing, I'm sure a lot of people have tried it. It is one of the coolest things you could possibly do for yourself. That is coming up in April. So we've got a lot of extraordinary experiences. We go to Bali every year, and that is always a moving experience. And then next year, as I mentioned, at the end of the year, we're going to do an Indian pilgrimage with the one lady who is the Indian guide. Most all the guides in India are male. She's amazing. She is from Agra, where the Taj Mahal is. So we're going to do Rajasthan, and then we're going to end in Rishikesh, and you're going to have Ayurvedic healing and experience some of those traditions with an Ayurvedic practitioner and teacher. I met in Mexico. She's going to be with you the whole time and in really letting you learn and helping you learn about the wisdom of the Indian culture, the entire trip. That's exciting. We also go to Bhutan every year, but this year we're doing Bhutan and Nepal. So you'll get to see the Himalayas and you will get to hike the tiger's nest and be blessed by a priest, just like I was. We go to Japan. We're going to do 4 trips to Japan next. So yeah, there's a lot to choose from, but I hope if you're interested, you just shoot us an email, info@Girls Guide to the World. We have people standing by. We have some wonderful ladies that will talk to you to figure out what is right for you.
What an amazing array of trips lined up. I love it. I will definitely check it out personally. And we are going to be putting all the links in the show notes so people will find you.
Fantastic. Please mention if you do come to us, that you heard us on this beautiful podcast. It's such a inspiring thing that you're doing, the Sacred Travel Podcast. How fabulous. I mean, I just love that this. So please mention it. I'd love to know that you came from the Sacred Travel Podcast. I want you to keep on doing what you're doing. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Well, Doni, it's been a pleasure to take this trip around the world with you. And there is so much to unravel here for everybody. I truly, truly appreciate you sharing your stories. And I really feel that there is a lot of wisdom and, just memory triggers for everybody else who is watching and listening. And I'm really excited for all the inspiration that you spark through your own travel experiences that you're offering. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Julia, it was such a pleasure. I loved it. I hope I just didn't go on too long. It's such a fantastic topic that it's hard to stop talking about it.
It is. And I mean, take 10 sacred stories take time, as you said. Like it's not all just like this. So, no, it's been perfect. It's been very inspiring. I feel super uplifted, and I hope everybody else does too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.